and welcome to the Ultimate Love Life Makeover Dating Mastery for Women. I'm Cami Elen, your host, and I am so happy that you're here with us for the kickoff of the summit. I'm so excited. Each day during this virtual summit, you will learn tips and tools from our world-class experts on all things related to dating and attraction. And this wisdom will help you to date and relate with unshakable confidence and become a woman who can inspire a great love. We're standing for you to create nothing less than lasting, luscious love, your ultimate love life makeover. And I am really excited and honored and truly privileged to be kicking off the summit today with our first keynote expert speaker, Dr. Claire Zammit. She's a woman that I adore and love, and she's going to be talking today on the topic, the feminine power keys for smart, creative, gifted, conscious women to attract their soulmate. And I have had the pleasure of knowing Claire. I was introduced to her many years ago, and I've been able to witness and watch her create and birth these incredible transformational teachings into the world. And the thing that I love the most about Claire is that she really practices what she preaches, and she has lived the work that she teaches, going on to create her work in the world, a successful business in the world, and she went on to meet and marry her soulmate using her work. So I can think of no one better to speak about dating mastery for women than Claire. She's brilliant, she's wise, she is generous, and a true stand for women everywhere to be really living their fullest lives. So you are going to be profoundly inspired. So before we dive in, I just want to tell you a little bit more about Claire. So as I said, we are here with Dr. Claire Zammit, and what you might already know about her is that she is the co-founder of the transformational education company Evolving Wisdom. And it was ranked number 83 on Inc. magazine's list of the top 500 fastest growing companies in America, which has reached over 1 million people and generated over $50 million in revenue in the past 7 years. She is the founder and leader of the Feminine Power courses and global community, serving hundreds of thousands of women in more than 100 countries from Asia and Europe, South America, and of course the USA. And the women in the Feminine Power community come from a really diverse range of professions, from teaching and coaching to healthcare and law and technology and more. And more than 35,000 women have graduated from her acclaimed online courses, advanced trainings, and transformational coaching, facilitation, and leadership certifications. And what you might not know about her is that Marianne Williamson calls her a woman that she herself turns to for wisdom and counsel. She has a PhD in transformative learning and change and spent over a decade researching how women learn and develop at the deepest level. Last year, she celebrated 10 years of marriage with her husband, spiritual teacher Craig Hamilton, who she met in a very magical way, using many of the keys she's going to be sharing today. So Claire, I'm so happy to have you with us. Welcome.
Oh, Cami, that was just an exceptional introduction. I was like, gosh, no pressure. Because, well, firstly, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And I just feel so honored and grateful. I mean, so deeply honored to be here as the first speaker in this extraordinary event that you're creating. And I've witnessed you for so many years be living and embodying feminine power and what it is to stand for and create extraordinary love in the world. So I just know everyone here is in incredible hands being guided on this journey with you. And as you were sharing that intro, I mean, what I was just really reflecting on is that, gosh, you know, I began my journey, and you were there pretty much. You knew me at almost the very beginning of that journey, where, like so many people here, I felt really confused. I had really challenging patterns in the area of love in my life, and I was in a terrible relationship. And I had no way of making a living that was in any way true to my values, but I knew that I had something valuable to give, and I felt a bigger possibility for my life. And it was through being in the kinds of communities and getting coaching and getting support and kind of coming together in these kinds of environments, along with things that I've discovered that have now kind of become this whole feminine power body of work that, were the difference. So, it couldn't be more important to be creating these deep spaces for us to come together to access the power to step into the possibility that we feel and sense in life and in love. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire. I appreciate that so much. Yes, and I have had the privilege and the honor to witness and watch you on your own journey, and it was so inspiring to watch you do that. And it's, at the time it seemed like magic almost, but it's not, but it's magical. The way that the feminine power principles had supported you and other women who have followed along in your work to be able to create huge transformation in the area of love, to break up old patterns and to really step into the authenticity of who they are, to find a partner who's really a match for the woman they really are in the world and who they want to be in the world, and the kind of love and partnership that they've been deeply yearning for at a soul level but haven't thought is possible. So I wonder if you could just start us off by talking about this idea about, how so many women are walking around the world today feeling these deep yearnings for love and partnership, but feeling like it's almost not possible. And what's the first step to break that up so that they can really get into a space of possibility, really? And also, I think when we're walking around without the possibility, we're not even deeply in touch with that, those deeper yearnings. So how does a woman break that up and really get access to those deep yearnings and step into possibility? How does a woman start with that?
Okay, so I'm just trying to find my way here into the short version of this. So, because I think that, so many of these things, and love is just one area that I've found smart, conscious, creative, gifted women are struggling in. We're struggling to create the relationships that we desire because the thing is, the yearning that we're having, it's not just to get married. It's not to get married and have kids. It's not to have the kind of relationships that our parents had. There's something that's very new that millions of us are feeling, is wanting to have what I like to call self-actualizing relationships. So the yearning for love that we have, it's for a partner where we can feel like we're truly met on all levels, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. But here's the thing, it's where it's a growth-oriented relationship where you're loved fiercely for who you are and unconditionally loved and supported, but really supported to become the best version of ourselves. And I think that's really the yearning and the kind of experience, because, I feel like millions of women are waking up to this impulse to want to step into the higher potentials of who we can be as a person and to have a relationship that supports that, and there's just, there's a much bigger story about why that's been challenging that has to do with our relationship to power. And it's much longer than we can go into right now, but we've been blaming ourselves about why can't I figure this out? But that's the yearning. And so I think the thing that I want to say at the very beginning is that the yearning that you're feeling and the possibility that we're all feeling, that's real. And to be able to step into it, we need to grow, we need to develop, we need to cultivate our capacities. And in many ways, we're creating something that, is a departure from the patterns of our childhood, from ways in which love shows up in the culture, from, this, kind of my experience was either I could, and I could be, how it shows up for a lot of conscious women is, either I can be with a kind of strong, powerful man that I'm attracted to, and then I kind of disappear myself, and I kind of go into organizing around him in some way. Or, it's this idea that smart, conscious, or powerful men aren't attracted to powerful women. So there's a way, it's like, and if I'm powerful, then I'm going to be attracted to or with a man who might be less powerful than me, who can, meet me on all of those levels. So anyway, it just shows up. The reason why this is confusing is because our experience in relationships has been confusing, and it shows up as these double binds and these either ors, which leads to a lot of hopelessness and resignation, and the sense that we can't have what we truly desire because we can't see the pathway of how to get there. So anyway, much more to say about this, but that's the first thing is, I would say, to know that that's real, and that the yearning that you feel is real, and that it's possible to create, but it's something that's not just going to happen, right? Because we see stories of like, we kind of think, well, I'm just going to meet the right person. So the kind of love that we're yearning for isn't just going to happen, but it's something that can be created through our own consciousness on a path of growth of both inner work as well as some outer actions that can shift, that will make that possible for all of us. And when you do have that kind of love in your life, it's just extraordinary what's possible and how it can catalyze and support you in all other areas coming together.
Well, I feel everybody just moved to the edge of their seats. Okay, tell me how. I want this.
Okay. Well, so it's not just going to happen because, so let's talk about the first part. So the first part has to do with some inner work that needs to happen. Okay. So let's just speak about the powerful women part, right? Because, we all have a story about why we haven't been successful in love up until now.
Right.
Right. So I think this is part of it, is we have to let go of the old story. So, one of my old stories was, men don't like powerful women, and mm-hmm. And I have this big calling and I have this big life. And so, I have to choose between having my calling and my mission or having love. And I'm going to nobly sacrifice having love so I can serve God or spirit or the universe. That's a story, right? So, or, men aren't attracted to powerful women. Whatever those stories are that we have about why it hasn't happened, are often in the way of us seeing the inner obstacles that we have in our own consciousness to being able to attract, create, and receive that kind of love in our life. So let's take the aspect of it that was like, men aren't attracted to powerful women. The truth is about that, what's actually even more true is that men aren't attracted to women who only value themselves for their accomplishments and what they can give, who are self-focused, who are unable to be vulnerable, who are unable to receive love, right? And so that's the deeper level of what's going on underneath for most of us, certainly for me, about the men aren't attracted to powerful women story. So, when I saw that, what I was able to see is like, okay, well, what's this, this old story about, I have to be doing or giving, to someone else to be worthy of receiving love. Well, that's not true. I got to what the deeper truth was, which is a process that we teach in Feminine Power. Like getting to a power statement, my deeper truth is my very existence is more than enough to fulfill and inspire my beloved beyond his wildest dreams. So it was this full shift in my core structures and my sense of who I am in love and what's possible to, there's nothing I need to do or be that I can give up control, that I can give up needing to try to prove anything, and I can just be receptive and I can be available and I can be present.
Mm-hmm.
And so my beingness completely shifted to one where I let go of control. You know, this is a really big thing just in terms of the way I would show up and the way that I would interact. And then I would start to presence myself and share my thoughts, share my feelings, share my needs, share my desires, you know. And what happens is in that dynamic, what happens is you create an incredibly powerful and empowering dynamic where you can really be in this very visible, very, you know, it's when I say, because they're masculine and feminine, they're such loaded terms because we say those things and then we kind of, you know, think about our mothers or our grandmothers disappearing themselves and saying you're so strong. That's not what this is. Like, I think when you're really in your power and you're feminine, you're present, you're open, you're available, you're receptive, you've let go of control. And in that there's space to receive. And, you know, for the first time in my life, inside that shift of beingness, I attracted someone and was attracted to someone who could really meet me and really support me and, you know, finally receive all that I desired. So, you know, that's just an example of, you know, there's an inner shift that is a block and a barrier underneath the old story that we need to get to and actually release, and that creates a shift in who we're being and how we're kind of generating connection. And, you know, when you can be connected to yourself, to your own, you know, like my own beingness is enough. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to, it's like it becomes incredibly magnetic to the right person, right? Because inside that old story, you know, I was always trying to figure out, you know, I couldn't be loved for who I was. So I was trying to figure out who I needed to be to get love. And that's just exhausting, right? And something that's completely unsustainable. It's something completely unsustainable. So when we kind of break up a lot of those dynamics, what we start to do is we create a dynamic that's really inside this higher potential and attract a partner who can meet us there and create something that's different. So that's the first step. So I'll create some space for any questions or for, you know.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining that. So that's, I know you've said before in the past, that our experience in love, it's been happening through us. And that's, I think, what you've been explaining, how that mechanism works, that the results that we've been having in the area of love and relationship, a lot of times I think for a lot of women, it can be confusing. They don't know, well, why do I keep attracting the same kind of partner? Why do I keep experiencing, for example, I can never meet a man who truly wants to commit, or I feel like my needs are never important, or whatever those things are that tend to continually happen and are pervasive. It's so confusing why that's happening. But I think you just explained the mechanism that it's actually happening through the consciousness that we're not aware of.
Well, and that's the thing. So it's like there's a way we're co-creating all of these dynamics in all of our relationships. And, you know, most of the stories that we've been in about why it's not possible aren't taking our attention to the place where we have the power to break through from it and break free from it. So I think this is, you know, an opportunity to, like, I'm going to enter into a new story about the possibility of having love, about the possibility of my own value, about, you know, kind of me, you know, kind of like if you had to rewrite your love story into a true love story and what that is, you know, then have a look at, you know, what's the old belief about yourself, about men, about marriage that you've been living into without realizing it, that's been co-creating this in your life. And like that's the foundation in terms of being able to release the inner barriers, the old story, to this deeper possibility.
And then from there, then is the next step, okay, well, now that I've looked at these things, I've kind of identified, wow, I didn't even realize I was inside of, I don't know, I'm not good enough to have that kind of love, or men only want women like that, but they never want women like me, or whatever those things are. Once those are made conscious, is the next step then to look at, okay, well, now that I've looked at that and I've looked at what really is more true and more possible for me, is the next step to look at, what do I really vision for love, to get clarity on that?
I think these steps can happen in different, I think it's a process of clarifying. But I think certainly we can't really, it's good to think about your vision for what you want to create. But, my good friend Ariel Ford, who I know is in the series, one of the things I appreciate about conversations we've been in about this in the last year, that, I think she's really kind of underscored, and a lot of the work that we've been doing together too, is, I think the biggest thing around clarifying your vision for love is understanding what are the things to look for in a life partner. That there's a difference between having a really profound and deep and rich kind of soulmate connection and a feeling of love, to, looking at through the lens of clarifying not only just your personal vision for love, but becoming aware of the qualities to be looking for in someone who would be an extraordinary life partner and match for you. And I think that's a very different way of orienting than most of us have been orienting. Like, I just want to have this feeling when I'm with someone. And I want to feel an attraction to someone.
Yes.
And all I want to have chemistry. I want to have chemistry, and I want to have this feeling of like, and I think most of us haven't, had this sort of training to look for. So, those things may or may not be there. The research shows that most women who are married didn't necessarily feel an attraction to their husband until the third or fourth date. So, sometimes the instant chemistry is there. But the deeper things, I think, in terms of clarifying your vision for love, most of us, our kind of unconscious vision for love has been programmed by a lot of these old love codes where, who we're attracted to matches up this old story and is like a magnet for evidence. So, we want to kind of disrupt a lot of those old patterns. And if we kind of tap into this sort of deeper yearning, it's for this growth-oriented connection that we're wanting, where we can be met, where we can co-create, where we can evolve. And so you want to, you think about, so to be able to successfully kind of create this with someone, having clarity yourself about what this would look like is really helpful. So being able to think about, the things that are most important to you and the kind of life that you want to have, what your key values are, what your vision for life is, the structure of relationship that you want to have. Do you want to share money? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to live together? Do you want to be legally married? Having clarity about, right, exactly. Having clarity about those things is super helpful. But even more importantly, looking for someone who has good relationship skills, looking for someone who is financially responsible, regardless of their bank balance, looking for someone who is kind, who is, compassionate and willing to be your safe place to land, looking for someone who is consistent and does what they say they're going to do. These are all the qualities that you need in someone that you're going to be married to. Now being married for a decade, this is something I didn't fully understand. Like, it's a big deal to join your life with someone and to share the ups and downs, the highs and the lows. And is this someone who's going to be a really great life partner? Versus, that you can feel all of these different things with. But fundamentally, I think that, if I'd had this clarity, if I'd had this kind of clarity in the process, what it does, having this kind of clarity about what you want to create just enables you to not emotionally invest in something that could never possibly work out. And really fine tune in terms of who you are, what you're sharing, what you're creating. Clarity precedes our power to manifest and create anything, not necessarily of the core form, but underlying clarity about, what it would look like, what it would feel like, what it would kind of be like to have that kind of love in our life. And most of us haven't asked ourselves these deeper questions beyond, I want to feel a certain way or have chemistry with someone. So it's really important to do. And it's that thing, it's the reticular activating system in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
That experience where you buy a new car and suddenly you notice all the same cars on the road that are like that you never previously noticed.
Yes.
Right? Because we're processing so much information. So that's part of what clarity does, is it helps then enable you to recognize, oh gosh, suddenly you start seeing people everywhere who could possibly be a match for you that you didn't previously see because you weren't really clear about what it is that you were wanting to consciously create.
I think I've heard you refer to this in the past as must-haves and deal breakers.
Yeah.
And can I put you on the spot and ask you, when you were going through this process, what do you think your must-haves were and your deal breakers? Just to give people an example. Okay.
All right, great. So, so this is, because, and I think this is you need the things, It's hard to, if you have 100 things that you want, and this is actually a process that Gay and Katie Hendricks teach in their must-haves and deal breakers, that is really, really powerful. And it was like, just focus on 3. And this was one of the books that I read as I was kind of going through this process. Just focus on 3. So for me, I think my must-haves were somebody who, I'm just trying to think back to this, somebody who is kind of adores me and is crazy about me. Like really, really enthusiastically loves me.
Love it.
Someone who is, kind of spirituality and consciousness and conscious development and evolution is really the central focus of their life. And that really, both of these are really, and I think someone who, was like really ready, willing, and available to fully partner on all aspects of life. So those were my 3 must-haves. And the 3 deal breakers, and the thing about the deal breakers, it's really good. It's like, what are the things that you are never, ever, ever willing to experience again in your relationship? And see, and this is really important to have, because, a lot of the time when we feel ambivalent about having a new relationship, it's because we don't want to experience what we've experienced in the past, and we'd rather be alone.
Yes.
And that's not conscious, and we don't trust ourselves to not get into that situation again. So we're like, oh no, relationships. So this is part of where it's so great to have your must-haves and your deal breakers, because it just enables you to feel confident that you're never going to experience this again. So deal breakers were anyone who was, and sometimes they're kind of opposite of the must-have. So, but, I was just, deal breakers, any kind of abuse, any kind of physical, emotional, psychological, like zero tolerance on any kind of abuse. Zero tolerance on anyone who is kind of ambivalent or that I need to convince in any way to, want the relationship. So that's kind of like an opposite of the must-have. But I was just like, never again am I ever going to try to convince someone to love me or choose me or want weight, in that way. I was trying to think of the 3rd deal breaker. That must have been, maybe it was kind of like just something like a 3rd deal breaker, not ready, not available, not wanting to be married, That was probably the 3rd one. So, and I think these things I was mentioning from Ariel are actually really helpful as well, just to be present for the things that you're looking for, and Craig had all of those, just in terms of consistency, congruence, alignment, availability, definitely exceeded my expectations on the must-haves. It was amazing. So it really...
Thank you. I think it's really helpful to have practical examples.
Yeah.
People can hear it and think, oh yeah, I really relate to that one. Oh, I've experienced that one before. So thank you for sharing those with us.
Totally.
And I'm wondering, we have such a great foundation of things to think about now before starting the dating process. And thank you for that. What do you think is most important now from this point? If a woman has looked at the things that you're talking about, kind of broken up the old story, stepped more into possibility, adopted a more powerful view of what's possible in love, looked at these must-haves, these deal breakers, the things that are most important to them in a loving relationship, and has the clarity on the vision for love, what next? What is important to do next? Do they start online dating, real life dating? How can they start meeting some potential possible soulmates?
Okay, so there's two things that I recommend in this department. And, and it applies to different, and there are things that I've come to learn. So the first is, I think, is to be very intentional about what you want to create and really receptive and open to intuitive guidance. So in my case, I had this very strong feeling that there was a conference in Germany that I really needed to go to as part of my graduate studies, but I just had such a strong feeling. But I was in this process. I was intentional every day. I was intentional every day. See, I think if you want to create anything in your life, whether it's a new job or you want to transform your health or anything, you have to, do things and take actions every day to create that, right? So it's not like in a job, and I see this happens in the area of love all the time and creating love all the time, is it's like, okay, well, I set my intention for love and now I'm like waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
And it's just not. So, and it's really, and so that would be like saying, I've set an intention to have a new job and you're sitting on your couch and like nothing's happened. So it's the same thing. Like, so you need to be intentional and in a process of creation and creating love every day versus waiting for it to happen, right? Just like you wouldn't wait for a job to come to you, even though it might if you're in the process. So there's two things every day. So there's inner work in terms of being receptive, open and available to deeper knowing. And then there's some practices and actions that I'll share about in just a minute. But so I just wanted to share a little more context in that, because I think the biggest mistake that women make in this process is, I'm going to have a vision, I'm going to set an intention, and I'm just going to sit back and wait for it to happen, as though that's how...
Make my vision board. I got the vision
board. Exactly. So every day, I'm really kind of like, here's my intention for love, here's my vision for love, this is what I'm creating, this is what it feels like, this is the truth of who I am in love, and I'm going to walk down the street inside this sense of myself being a ecstatically happily married woman, and start cultivating and preparing and like doing all of those things on a level of consciousness that we know how to do, like for real. Like it was the central focus of my life in terms of like my daily time, half an hour every morning of, kind of prayer, meditation, reflection, intentionality. And so from there, when you're intentional, and this is actually a very big and important point, intuition is responsive to our own intentionality, right? So, and this is actually a very important distinction, because, you set an intention and you're kind of like sitting back and you're not, well, I'm not getting any guidance. It's like, well, you're not actively being intentional on a level of consciousness. When you're intentional about anything that you want to create in your life, and you nourish and you fertilize those intentions with your attention daily. They're like seeds of potential, and you fertilize them with your attention, with your, with your like kind of like you're growing them. And then what starts to happen is you get an intuitive knowing and guidance in response to that intentionality versus you're not intentional and you're not giving your attention to nourish what it is that you want to create, and somehow then the universe is going to tell you what to do. It doesn't work that way. It's like something, I want to just say this again, is that intuition, this kind of feel of synchronicity and flow, like all of that is in response to being in your own center as a creator and really connecting with your desires, connecting with your being very intentional about what you want to create. So I was in that process, and I had this very strong knowing, I need to go to this conference in Germany. Now, that conference is where I met Craig.
Yes.
And I could have very easily, if I was not connected to that larger field, I could very easily with my mind have talked myself out of going.
Can I ask you just to talk about that for a minute? Because
Yeah.
I know I've heard women and sometimes are confused about that, about, well, how do I know it's actually my intuition? How do I discern what I'm feeling is the intuition, or how do I discern that it's maybe something else? When do I know? I've heard women say that before. I was thinking about a client who did this as well, just as another example. She just had this knowing, I need to move to Vancouver. Never really been there, but she just thought, I don't know why I'm getting this intuition. I'm going to meet my soulmate in Vancouver. So she moved there temporarily. She kept her space here in Los Angeles. She said, okay, I'm going to go there. I don't know if this is my intuition or not. Maybe I'm crazy. But she went there, and she, within a few weeks, met the man who she's now married to. And I went to her wedding recently. And she gave up her apartment after, and moved there permanently. But that sounds like this, almost out of a movie. So I would love to have you help women. How do they know when it's actually their intuition? Like, I need to move to Vancouver. My soulmate is there.
Okay, well, and I have an equal number of stories of women who followed that kind of guidance, and the soulmate isn't there, or it doesn't work necessarily as they expect, or, So the thing is, you don't know necessarily. You don't know for sure. But I think that there's another way of knowing that we can tap into that. I think when you're following intuitive guidance, and you kind of get a kind of knowing about something, it's good to kind of hold it with a lot of curiosity and receptivity and wonder, as opposed to certainty. It's this posture as it relates to the process of co-creation on this level that's kind of not too tight, not too loose. You're kind of holding it like, I wonder, I'm having this intuition. I need to go to this conference. It's really important. I don't exactly understand why. But when I step in towards it, when it is intuition and deeper knowing, when you step in and you take action on the knowing that's coming from this deeper place, you'll start to feel energized. And you'll start to feel like energy building, versus if you take action from this place of, it's kind of an unconscious projection, or it's your fear, or it's kind of panic. Because this is, a lot of us, and this is kind of a little segue of something else I want to mention in just a second. But
okay,
what starts to happen when you're not acting on intuition is you start to feel a kind of increased anxiety and tension.
Okay.
Versus flow and expansion.
Okay.
That's actually one of the key markers of, like, is this intuition, or is this, and this is where, it's so important. This is one of the things I teach in Feminine Power, because very deeply, you have to have a lot of self-awareness to be able to powerfully use intuition as a navigating kind of guide in your life. But if you want to create and manifest at this area of self-actualization, you absolutely must learn how to do this and kind of navigate this in a world. But there are these markers and patterns when you can start to know yourself, and this kind of comes from, setting intentions from a place of being connected to our true desires and our true, kind of visions, versus a lot of places that we set intentions for love from are FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh my God, I'm engaged and I want to have a family. And so panic, alarm bells. We can't manifest from that consciousness. Or setting intentions because we have a lot of fears. I'm afraid of being alone in life. Like that's not, our power as creators really comes from a place of a much deeper connection to ourselves, a much deeper awareness of this deeper intelligence in partnership with a higher power, and in our ability to make connections and generate a lot of support from others. So when we can cultivate and practice, this system, a more feminine system of power, then, intuition becomes a powerful guide. And, in this realm of having extraordinary love or following your calling or getting your genius out into the world, realizing your larger destiny, that's absolutely critical. So as well as your love destiny. So you want to be cultivating and practicing every day, kind of listening from this deeper place, connecting from a deeper place, sourcing from a deeper place. So, maybe they'll be like, go to the conference or move to Vancouver. And one of the things that I always coach women on is that you should always take eyes wide open risks. Like risks are absolutely essential, but there's a difference between blind faith and eyes wide open courage.
Yes.
Right? Because you won't ever need to express blind faith to show up in your power. Anything that's intuitive, when you look at it, will have a deeper alignment with the larger things in your life, and you're not going to do anything that's super financially irresponsible or puts children at risk or,
have your parents.
Dangers. Exactly. So, I think that's really kind of true. Anyway, there's a lot on that. So this is the first thing. So every day you want to be sourcing and listening and creating from this deeper place. And it's amazing the kind of the guidance and the knowing and the kind of awareness that you have. You're releasing your old patterns. You're being intentional. You're showing up in ways that are connected and aligned with what you're creating. And then, I think then there's also something I've really learned over the last couple of years, having, had so many conversations with different love and relationship experts, is that, I think that, sometimes it might happen in this very fluid, magical way. I have a magical story, but that doesn't mean that that's the way that it happens for everybody. And I think it's really important to be able to find love, to create this extraordinary love. You need to be able to make connections with people who might be interested and be actively generating that on a daily basis, through family and friends. So, so this is the second thing, is actively be generating new connections in person, through family and friends, at events or places where people who are of like-minded gather, from volunteering to conferences to workshops to hiking associations in your local area. You want to put yourself in places where you're going to meet people actively versus waiting for it to happen. So, you're actively, and I think going online is one of the most powerful things that you can do in the process. And what is so daunting is most of us haven't really ever had the training or the support to understand how to navigate that process so that it's inspiring and that it's soulful and it's not confusing and frustrating. And I think if you learn how to navigate the online world, and if you learn how to make connections in person, when you develop those skills, that whole part of the process can be as exciting and magical and synchronous as meeting someone in person. And it's absolutely essential. I know that in the summit, you're going to be talking a lot more about what those skills are. So the thing I want to underscore to everyone is really pay attention to these sessions that you're going, that Cam is going to be taking you into, because, these are absolutely critical skills to learn how to present yourself in your profile, how to kind of make connections online, how to, kind of then get on the phone and have a conversation, who to see again. When you learn these skills, you just feel empowered, and you can bring magic and synchronicity and flow to every aspect of the dating process and make it sacred and connected as well.
Thank you, Claire, so much. And I have so much more I would love to talk with you about and ask you about, and I just want to be respectful of your time. And so any last thoughts in closing? And I also know that you have a free gift to offer. So any last thoughts on this?
Well, I just want to say is that it's having access to information and support like what you're providing for people, Cami. There really is the difference between, success in this area versus like, I just have this feeling of it's possible and I'm confused and overwhelmed. I mean, the things that you're going to be guiding people through in the summit are what really work. They are. You're going to learn from Allison and from John and from Ariel and Bella and Ken Page. I mean, these are the most brilliant people who have been working with people for decades. Cami, you have for thousands of hours, being coaching and mentoring and supporting people. I just want to say to everyone, you just couldn't be in better hands in this summit and what you have created for everyone. And, when you do this inner work and when you learn these new skills and you have a community of support and even, getting support from a coach. Cami, you're an extraordinary coach. I can't endorse you more strongly in terms of if you need help with this one-on-one to find your patterns or, to get launched online, getting personal support or accessing this kind of program. I mean, this is what really works. This is really what makes the difference and is going to give you access to the power to be able to step into what's possible. It's real. What you feel and sense in your clearest moments is absolutely real. And I can't even begin to tell you what has happened for me in the last 10 years. I was someone who thought, I could take or leave having a relationship, because I'm a feminist and who needs a man to be happy and I can be happy on my own. And and maybe I could follow my calling in life and maybe, it'll happen for me or not. But I was just so wrong about that. Not that you need someone to complete you, but especially if you're someone who wants to make a difference, who has a contribution to make, who has a calling, having someone who can love you unconditionally, who can support you on the practical levels of life, who can share your life, who can be your, cheerleader, your celebration partner, your safe space to land, because life is full of so many challenges and complexities, your thought partner, having that level of support at the foundation of your life, amplifies your power to contribute and to impact and to serve. My power to do the work that I'm doing has been amplified tenfold as a result of the support that I have in the foundation of my life with this extraordinary marriage. And I want that for each and every person who is listening here, to have that level of love, of being seen and supported. And, having that in your life is just such a foundation for happiness, well-being, success, and it couldn't be anything more important at the foundation of things to be investing in to create a happy and successful life. So I'm excited about everything that everyone's going to learn and what you're going to be taking people through, Cami. And I just feel honored and grateful to have had the opportunity to be here with everybody today and just extend love and support. And there's so much happening in our experience as women that has to do with this larger story of power and all of the double binds that we're in around power and relationships. And, if I had an hour to spend at the start of this, that I would. There's a free seminar that people can sign up for, The Keys to Feminine Power, where I'm going to just spend an hour and basically take you through step by step how to awaken and source from this feminine power system that will give you access to the power to create this kind of growth-oriented relationship, as well as your calling, purpose, career breakthroughs at this whole higher level of your life that you feel and sense. So that's what that seminar is. And I really look forward to staying connected to everyone as well.
And in order to get the seminar that Claire's talking about, it's right below on the page here. Below the video that you're watching or the audio that you're listening to, there's a link, and that's where you can access that. And Claire, thank you so much for being here. I'm so moved and inspired by everything. I know the women listening are feeling moved and inspired. You gave us such an incredible kickoff today of our summit. So grateful that you were able to be with us today. So much love to you. I so appreciate you being here. Thank you. And I look forward to being with you soon, hopefully. But thank you for being here.
Thanks, Cami. Much love. Have an amazing event. Much love. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And everyone, thank you so much for being here with us for the Ultimate Love Life Makeover Summit. If you'd like to learn more about our Summit VIP package, you can get today's seminar with Claire. You can add it to your permanent collection, as well as all of the content throughout the entire summit. You can learn more about that by going below on this page or to ultimatelovelife.makeover.com/VIP. So excited to have you with us for the rest of the summit. So stay tuned and join us for more of the Ultimate Love Life Makeover. We'll be with you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.